The lobby of the Meridian Grand was the kind of place that had perfected the art of welcoming you in a way that made certain people feel unwelcome. The marble floors were pale and veined. The chandeliers were old enough to have provenance, and the staff moved in precisely calibrated arcs between the furniture, as though choreographed by someone who had studied how money preferred to be approached. Marcus Webb walked in at 11:43 on a Thursday morning, and the lobby noticed him before he noticed the lobby. That was how it worked, most places. He was 6 feet 4 inches tall, and built the way men are built when they have spent years in disciplines that require absolute precision of the hands and absolute stillness of the body. Not the size of a man who worked for the size, but the size of a man for whom size was simply an afterthought to everything else. His coat was charcoal and well fitted, and old enough to be past caring about fashion. His briefcase was leather and worn at one corner. He moved through the marble space without adjusting his pace for it, which meant he moved the way water moves, taking the path that already exists, not asking for one to be made. He stopped at the concierge desk, set his briefcase beside his right foot, put his left hand on the counter. Nobody in that lobby was watching the small blonde woman in the chair by the east window. That was their first mistake. She was sitting with a coffee cup in her left hand, balanced on its saucer, the saucer resting on the armrest of the chair. She was 4 feet 11 inches tall, which in the velvet chair looked almost proportional. She was dressed the way people dress when they have run out of things to prove. Dark trousers, pale blouse, flat shoes, nothing that announced itself. She wasn't reading. She wasn't on her phone. She was watching the lobby the way people watch rooms they own. She had been there since 11:15, and she was watching Marcus, and she was watching the man walking toward Marcus from the direction of the management office with the stride of someone who has already decided what they're going to say. Marcus had been awake since 5:45. Not by alarm. He hadn't used an alarm in 11 years. The body learns its own schedule when the work requires it. He had made coffee in the kitchen of his apartment, standing at the window that faced east, watching the city find its light. It was the part of the morning he was most protective of. The operating room had its own light, cold, functional, absolutely reliable. But the morning light at the window was different. This was just light. He had a daughter who called on Thursdays. She had called at 6:12, and they had talked for 22 minutes, and the conversation had operated the way all conversations with people you love operate. Outside of time zones, outside of agendas, in the particular space that exists between two people, when neither of them has anything to prove to the other. She was studying civil engineering at a university in another city, and she was excellent at it. She had told him about a structural failure analysis she was presenting the following week. He had told her about the symposium. He listened the way he always listened, completely, without the part of himself already thinking about the next thing, which was a skill the operating room had given him and which he had found useful in every other room he had ever entered. After the call, he dressed. He had a system, everything in its place. This was not obsessiveness. It was the same certainty that governed his hands through 3,000 procedures. The certainty that when you need something to be where you left it, it will be where you left it. He took the train rather than a car. He always took the train when a meeting was within 3 stops. He had been to the Meridian Grand twice before. The 14th floor conference centre had hosted the regional cardiothoracic surgery symposium the past 2 years, and he had presented at both. The hotel did not know this, and Marcus had never found a reason to mention it. Today he was attending, not presenting. He had cleared his afternoon to listen to a colleague's work on post-operative recovery protocols. He was here because the science was worth hearing. That was the only reason he was ever anywhere. He stood at the concierge desk and stated his name and his purpose. The concierge typed. His left hand rested on the counter. If you looked at it, really looked, you could see the marks, fine white lines along the first knuckle of his index finger and the second knuckle of his middle finger, a thin, pale thread running between them. The work had left its language on his skin the way all long work does. In the operating room, his hands moved with absolute authority. Here, at rest, they had the quality of instruments set down between procedures, still capable, still precise, simply waiting. The fingers opened and closed once, slowly. An old habit, muscle memory from a life spent in rooms where stillness was its own precision. And then the shadow arrived. Claire Ashford had been awake since 5:30. She had made tea, not coffee, a distinction she maintained with some conviction, and had stood at the kitchen island of her apartment reading 3 documents she had been sent the night before. 2 were board memos. One was an operational review of the Meridian Grand prepared by the group's internal audit team. She had read it twice and made 2 notes in the small dark leather notebook she kept beside her tea, closing the notebook before the notes were finished, and continuing from memory. The notebook was not for others. She had kept notebooks like it for 20 years, and had never once left one open on a table where someone else could read it. She had dressed in under 15 minutes. She had built her wardrobe for the purpose it served. Functional, considered, entirely uninterested in announcement. She had learned a long time ago that people who looked at her expected to find either something cute or something negligible, and she had found that both expectations were easier to manage if you gave them nothing to hold on to. The less you gave the room, the more the room underestimated you, and the more the room underestimated you, the more clearly you could see it. She had arrived at the Meridian at 11:15, 45 minutes before her board pre-meeting lunch, and had not gone upstairs. She sat in the lobby instead. She always did this when she was early at a property. Lobbies told you things that balance sheets didn't. They showed you the gap between what a hotel claimed to be and what it actually did with the people who walked through its door. She had ordered a coffee. When it arrived, she set the saucer on the armrest of the chair and aligned it. The edge of the saucer flush with the edge of the armrest, the cup handle at 45 degrees. A passing server had reached to adjust it out of some professional instinct, and then, for a reason he couldn't have named, had pulled his hand back and moved on. She always set things down precisely. It had started years ago as a practical response to a world built for people 4 inches taller, a way of keeping things within reach. But it had become something else over time. A line. A declaration. This is where I have placed this. This is where it will stay. She watched the lobby. Fysen Haifs Meeuwstaan Breules ha. Nossen Hais Aftin Servant Geomist. Hoffin Justas Justas Taud Eyes. Hives and Highs. Hoffin Justas Justast. She watched Marcus walk in. Your hours walk in. She watched Garrison Howell walk toward Marcus. And she understood in the first 4 seconds exactly what was about to happen. Garrison Howell had been the general manager of the Meridian Grand for 11 years and 8 months. He would reach 12 years in April, and the group had indicated quietly that there would be recognition of this. He had overseen 3 lobby renovations, 2 ownership transitions, and 1 structural incident involving the north wing that had been resolved so cleanly that almost no one remembered it had occurred. He was, by any reasonable measure, excellent at his job. He was 54, ex-military, marine officer, a decade of service, and he had brought to hotel management the same quality he had brought to the Corps, a precise, systematic attention to the integrity of the environment he was responsible for. The Meridian Grand attracted a specific clientele. He maintained that attraction. This was not, in his own construction of it, snobbery. It was stewardship. He was the guardian of something he had helped build, and he guarded it with the tools available to him. He catalogued people. He had done it in uniform, and he did it here. He walked into a room and read it in 4 seconds and made decisions based on the reading, and in 11 years the decisions had been, he believed, mostly correct. He was not a cruel man. He had a daughter he adored, a wife he respected, and 2 junior managers he mentored with genuine investment. He had also, somewhere in the architecture of his experience, built a set of assumptions that had never been seriously interrogated about who belonged in certain rooms and who required verification before being allowed to remain. He saw Marcus Webb at the concierge desk, and he read what he read, and he walked over, and he said what he said, and he believed, entirely and without awareness of any alternative, that he was simply doing his job. That was what made the next 20 minutes so precise in their consequences. "Sir, are you here for a delivery?" "Verleib mewe." The Nord is dryerly. The lobby heard it. Marble floors and 15-foot ceilings carry sound to places it was never sent. 3 men at the table near the east column stopped mid-sentence. The couple at the elevator bank stopped their quiet argument about a dinner reservation. A young woman with a laptop near the cafe counter stopped typing and did not start again. Marcus turned to face Garrison Howell and looked at him for a full moment, unhurried, undefended, and he said, "No. Do you have business in the hotel?" "I do." "I do." "I do. One evening. Could I ask what kind?" "Verlate heavyweight ales. Verlate heavyweight ales. Your pern the mares. Verlate heavyweight ales. Verlate heavyweight ales. Verlate heavyweight ales. Your pern the mares. Verlate heavyweight ales. Your pern the mares. Could I ask what kind?" Marcus said nothing. He was not performing silence. He was simply not answering a question that had no right to be asked. Garrison straightened. "Sir, the Meridian Grand is a private property, and I reserve the right to ask anyone on these premises to verify." "He's a conference attendee," the concierge said, quietly, clearly. She did not look up from her screen. "Cardiothoracic Surgery Symposium, 14th floor. Dr. Webb is confirmed in the system." Garrison looked at her, then at Marcus, then at the lobby, which had developed an unusual stillness. Not the quiet of a place at rest, but the quiet of a place that was paying close attention. He made a second decision. Fime quinting. "You've made a second decision?" "I'll need to see some identification," he said. I said. The concierge looked up. "Seleucida's army au fang. Seleucida's army with armsog had MR." Marcus reached into his coat, no performance attached to the motion, no hesitation, and placed his conference badge, his hospital credentials, and his driver's license on the counter. Side by side, aligned. Then he put his wallet back. Garrison picked up the license, examined it, set it down. "And your conference registration confirmation?" Marcus looked at the man across the counter. His face did not change. His left hand, resting on the marble, opened and closed once. Those long fingers, those white lines, that particular quiet. And he said nothing. The lobby was very quiet now. The lobby was very quiet now. In the chair by the east window, Claire Ashford set her coffee cup down. The click of porcelain on saucer was almost nothing, but it had the quality of a door being closed with intention. She stood up. "What's that on fur? On the heister. Mi Stephen is morgas, njosoms mena, wotsefana, on the heister, farna bahas. Fardzana fur." She crossed the lobby with the measured pace of someone who has learned that hurrying is a concession to other people's timelines. And she arrived at the concierge desk and stood beside Marcus, her head approximately level with his elbow. And she looked at Garrison Howell. "What's the problem?" she said. "One Miefenjels said." Garrison turned toward the voice and spent a half-second recalibrating. He deployed the smile. "Ma'am, this is a private matter between the hotel and—" "His credentials are on the counter," Claire said. "I can read them from here. The badge, Meridian Grand Conference Center, Dr. Marcus Webb, Cardiothoracic Surgery, St. Benedict's Medical Center." Garrison turned back to her with the full collected weight of 11 years of authority. "And you are?" Claire looked at him for a moment. 1 second. 2. The lobby counted with her. Then she reached into the small bag at her shoulder and produced her phone. "I'd like you to think carefully," she said, "about whether you want me to make this call." He almost laughed. She watched him almost do it. "Ma'am, I don't know who you think you—" She dialed. "Vicen, one of mines. One of mines to be sword, one of mine and miners and nines. Vicen, one of mines and nine and mines. Vicen, one of mines and nines and nines. Vicen, one of mines. Vicen, one of mines and nines. Vicen, one of mines and nines and nines. Vicen, one of mines and nines and nines. Vicen, one of mines and nines and nines and nines. Vicen, one of mines and nines. Vicen, one of mines and nines and nines and nines. Vicen, one of mines and nines and nines. Vicen, one of mines and nines and nines. Vicen, one of mines and nines 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 and nines. One ring. The quote one ring. The quote one ring. The quote one ring. The quote one ring. One ring. The quote one ring. "James," she said, "I'm standing in the lobby of the Grand. I need you to call Hector." A pause. "Yes, now." She ended the call. She set her phone on the counter. The edge of the phone was level with the edge of Marcus's conference badge. 11 seconds passed. There's some fast. The security chief's radio crackled. He was standing near the elevator bank, 12 feet away, and he lifted it by reflex, and then went very still. He listened for 4 seconds. Whatever came through in those 4 seconds did something to the structure of his face, rearranged it, quietly, from the inside. He crossed the lobby in 9 steps. He arrived at the desk. He did not look at Garrison Howell. He did not look at Marcus Webb. He looked at Claire Ashford. And when he spoke, his voice had dropped to the register people use when they have just understood the full size of something. "Miss Ashford, I had no idea you were in the building. I'm so sorry that—" "I know," she said. "Osandana halls of Nor. Osandana halls. Kojira met. Highway maho. Amaintido outside." Garrison turned. "What?" The security chief turned to him. 4 words, close to his ear. Garrison Howell's expression moved through confusion and into something that looked like a man watching the floor disappear from under very careful feet. He turned back to Claire. The lobby was entirely openly watching. He opened his mouth. She said, 3 o'clock. We'll speak in the management office. The beast to be heard." And then she turned to Marcus, not Garrison, not the security chief. "Marcus, Dr. Webb," she said, "I believe you have 4 minutes." He looked at her. It was the first time they had held real eye contact, and it lasted long enough to say something that neither of them put into words. He was looking at this woman, 4 feet 11, blonde, completely still, and he was not looking at her the way most people looked at her. He was looking at her the way someone looks at a room they have entered before and recognized from a different angle. He had watched her cross the lobby. He had seen the way she set the phone down. He had heard the 2 words she had said into it, James, Hector, and understood the specific economy of a person who uses exactly as many words as the situation requires, and not one more. His left hand was still on the counter. The scars were visible in the lobby light. He nodded once. Thank you, he said. One sila tho spor. Wain daily tel thum sia. Thank you, he said. He gathered his credentials from the counter, picked up his briefcase, and walked to the elevator without once looking at Garrison Howell, and the lobby gave him space, not because it had to, but because something had shifted, something as structural and invisible as load redistributing itself through a building, and the room had finally, correctly, rearranged its understanding of who was standing in it. The elevator doors closed. The lobby breathed. The symposium ran until 2:45. Marcus came back through the lobby at 2:51, briefcase in the same hand, coat over the same arm, moving with the same unhurried certainty he had moved with when he'd arrived. She was in the same chair. He stopped. He was a man who did not stop easily, who moved through space with the conserved energy of someone for whom stillness was always intentional. And the fact of the stop said something he did not say with words. You didn't have to do that, he said. On Caesar, one ficity faimi stracitizeben is de gonses, for no, one ficity faimi stracitizeben same is montes bond duas and you horn landi bow. I know, Claire said. I know, Claire said. I know, Claire said. Dear, I know, Claire said. Rousseau Mahol. It cost you nothing. He said it the way he said everything, carefully, without accusation, but without softening either. An observation left open for examination. She looked up at him. It never costs anything for the people who could stop it, she said. That's the problem. He was quiet. His left hand was at his side, and she looked at it once. The scars, the knuckle lines, the particular way his fingers rested, and then back at his face. Dorsal aspect. Left hand, she said. The pattern is specific. You hold things differently than most people hold things. He said nothing. For a Notting Farm sissus brucis things the may. For a Notting Farm sissus brucis sprucis 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 sprucis. For a Notting Farm sissus brucis sprucis 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 spruces 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 Most surgeons don't notice they're still doing it outside the OR, she said. You notice everything. Something moved in his face. Not surprise. Something quieter and more considered than surprise. He looked at her. 43%, he said. She was still. You was still. What a manlika. What he all the obiz and walkandi. I read the Meridian Group's restructuring documents last year, he said. The silent stakeholders are disclosed in the supplementary notes. Your name is small, the percentage isn't. She was quiet for a moment. Most people don't read supplementary notes. Most people aren't trained to look for what lives in the margin, he said. A third, fine people that aren't trained to look for what lives in the margin, he said. They stood there, she 4'11", he 6'4", in the lobby of the Meridian Grand, and the lobby moved around them without knowing what it was moving around, which was a thing the lobby had been doing all morning. She reached for her coffee cup. Set it back down. Precisely. You are the most important person in this room this morning, Dr. Webb, she said. The room simply hadn't worked that out yet. He considered this. And now it has, he said. Now it has, she agreed. Days from mites, Denigstone. They did not exchange numbers. They did not shake hands. Marcus Webb picked up his briefcase and walked toward the revolving door, and Claire Ashford walked toward the elevator, and the lobby watched them go. This man and this woman, both of whom had walked into this room as themselves and were leaving as themselves, carrying the full weight of who they were, requiring nothing from the architecture to confirm it. Some people spend their entire lives adjusting to rooms. They learn to make themselves smaller, quieter, easier to accommodate, because the room has made clear that this is the price of entry. And they pay it. Most people pay it. It is the easiest tax there is, because the room never shows you the bill. But there are people who do not pay it, who walk into rooms that want them smaller and leave exactly the size they arrived. Not because they are louder, or angrier, or more aggressive than the room expected, but because somewhere, in an operating theatre, or a boardroom, or 1,000 lobbies just like this one, they decided that the room's expectations were not their responsibility. Those people are not overlooked. They have simply been waiting with great patience for the room to catch up. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe. There are more stories like this one waiting.